are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for doing yourself up. It looked like you've just come straight out of your book.
Thank you. I wanted to get dressed up.
No, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I feel very under duress now. So, first of all, congratulations on the book. It's fantastic. I loved it to bits. I mean, you see what I thought about it on Instagram and stuff. It's fantastic. So I can't wait
I
for it.
loved your review. I was like, he got it. He got what I was doing. That's amazing. I was like telling my fiance, he got my book so well, like nailed it. It was wonderful. So thank you
No,
for reading it. Thank you for checking it out. And thanks for meeting today.
no, my pleasure. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned that I in my mini review that I posted on Instagram that you share with your fiance. Yeah. It kind of mentioned various things that it reminded me of, but I think kind of the blurb says it kind of compares it to Hellraiser with The Great Gatsby.
Mhm.
Was that your publisher's idea to kind of pitch it like that, or was that kind of an original idea that you went for those two things and they kind of merged? What came first? Was it Great Gatsby, the Hellraiser, a bit of both? What was the genesis by that?
Both. It was
Yeah.
honestly both. So the original idea for this came from the fact that I was asked to be on a panel at a local convention called Dragon Con, which is huge in Atlanta. Um, and they needed somebody to talk about Miss Fisher murder mysteries, which is set in the 1920s and stars the same lead actress as the Babadook, which I
Right.
gotta check this out. What did she do after the Babadook? She did the show. This is amazing. And I went down the rabbit hole. I'm usually a horror girl, and I went over into Murder Mystery Land, which is a different place, and I loved it. And I'm like, why are there no horror novels set in the 1920s? Like, haven't, why is there not more of a thing with this? Because I loved it. And I knew Victor Laval had done his short story, but like it's a novella. And I'm like, there needs to be more. So when I came up with the idea, it was originally a short story that I sold to a spinoff of Occult Detective Quarterly, and which it was the first two chapters of the book. That was the short story.
All right, just those two
And
chapters. Yeah.
yeah, and my agent, when the magazine folded and the editor died, she said you need to make this into a book. And I'm like, I think I want to do my demons a little differently. I think I want to kind of go the Hellraiser route,
Right.
where they were all once people before, versus Judeo-Christian kind of demons, where you're dealing with Beelzebub and like the hierarchy, kind of like you see in Hell of a Boss or Has Been Hotel, where you see the clear hierarchy of all the demons. I'm like, I want to do something different, something where everyone in this hotel was once a person. And they went and delved too deeply into the darkness in some way. And the darkness is the entertainment industry.
Mhm. No,
That's
it
where it
works
came
really
from.
well.
That was
And
always the pitch.
yeah, but no, because I was looking at a few. I don't know if you read reviews, so stop me if I say anything you don't want to listen to. But no, so but no, I mean, quite a few of them were saying that they really loved it because they thought it was going to be kind of lighter because it was kind of set in the 1920s, that kind of glitzy glamour kind of thing, and it went down a
Mhm.
completely different avenue. And that I mean, I imagine that's kind of what you're saying there, now that you wanted it to be set in this era where we don't really see much horror, and then kind of really imbue a whole lot of gory horror in there as well, no?
Yeah, like I think my intention was to grab kind of the fantasy readers and say, hey, horror is actually pretty great. Let me introduce some of it into my magic systems, into my world building, so that like there is some overlap. And some of my favorite writers delve a little bit into something that's fantasy, something that's horror. It's cross genre. Like I love Joe Hill's work, and his work features fantasy in his
Yeah.
horror novels. And I'm like, I want to do that too. I think that'd be great. And I think because of that, I tried to make it like in terms of horror fandom, it's a lighter read. Like it's gore. I could have gone way worse, and I
I'm
chose
sure.
not to try to make it a gateway so more people would come over to the dark side and read horror books.
Uh-huh. No, but it works really, really well. I mean, I don't think if you'd have tipped it too far, maybe it wouldn't have would have clashed a bit too much. I think it just worked really well the way it does go. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's what I tried to do. It was definitely a balancing act. It felt like very similar to Mabel trying to perform. I was trying to also walk this high wire active, making it really set in the time, using the right language, the period costumes, studying architecture, studying the Ziegfeld Follies, studying as much as I could. I just spent like 6 months studying everything I could find from university textbooks to I found a book about all the follies that used to pose nude and their stories.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to make sure that there was this balance between the horrific nature of the demons and the story that I wanted to tell about being an artist, trying to make it in, trying to make it big, whatever you want to do, whatever your dream. And combining that with those real elements, I thought would help ground it. And also, I liked doing some of the moments where I push it really far, where all the demons have a second mouth and those mouths have to feed. And there's your body horror and gore right there.
No, no, it's great. I mean, I even, but I also mentioned like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, that's kind of horror people read that and it's like, well, if it's like the Wizard of Oz, I'm not sure. But it really does. I really felt like I was kind of watching that movie again. I imagine that was kind of an inspiration from a long way back now, and it's just kind of something. Was that something that you kind of you wanted to recreate, or was that something that just kind of imbued itself organically?
I think The Wizard of Oz was an influence, so was The Witches by Roald Dahl, and so was The Matrix. Um, I had a lot of these different influences, I think, for this book versus just The Great Gatsby and Hellraiser. That seemed like the most apt short pitch to
Yeah,
be like, okay, I'm talking about the 1920s and I'm talking about demons that are not Judeo-Christian demons. And I'm thinking Hellraiser 2 in my mind, like when we get more into the Cenobites and their stories. And I wanted to also draw from as many hotel stories as I could find. So the Grand Budapest Hotel, the Wes Anderson movie, was a
yeah,
huge influence. And Ralph Fiennes' character, that's basically where I got my concierge from, where
yeah,
Raymond Black is from, is Ralph Fiennes. But yeah, I drew on so much for this. And when you said Wizard of Oz, I was like, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And Wicked's my favorite play. It's my favorite musical.
Right.
So I'm like, it's gonna sneak in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Mhm. No, I mean, it didn't. It never kind of felt like it was a complete riff off Wizard of Oz. But I don't know if there was just kind of something about it. That just kind of the way she was navigating and meeting these people. It just really felt like what she was like meeting the Tin Man and these kind of things. It really did feel like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like she meets different people who have all been, tragically drawn to the hotel in some way. Each of them has a dream. Will want to play the fiddle. His parents died in Ireland. He brought his sister to America, and then they're working on the streets of New York, and he's trying to make money for her. And he ends up as a doorman working the front of the hotel. And I'm like, everybody, it I really wanted to write about the fact that I've been in the entertainment industry for 15 years. I started out Cartoon Network. I worked in video games. I got to work with my favorite developers that worked on BioShock and BioShock Infinite,
All right.
a game called Romancevania. And I was so fortunate in my career to have gotten to work in like all these different big industries, publishing, broadcasting, video games. I did concept art for some film. I did concept art for gaming. And I met so many people who all had dreams like me. And I wanted to tell a story that was about someone who, when she goes into it, she's really just looking out for herself. Like I've got this dream, I want to come to New York. And you find out through the course of the novel that she really wanted to be a vaudevillian. She wanted to be a magician, you know? And then once she finds out that vaudeville's kind of dying by the time she gets there, she tries to be a Ziegfeld girl instead. And she's like, I got to get in. I got to beat out all these other people. They're competing for this like one spot. And it's not dissimilar to the stories I'd hear, whether I was working in animation or working in video games. There's only one seat, and it's highly competitive, and you have to have a good portfolio and good presence, or know somebody, or audition. It's all an audition, whether it's singing or dancing or art, your portfolio,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I'm like, the biggest thing I learned is it's not all about you. It's about everyone's dreams. It's that rising tide lifts all ships thing. And I wanted Mabel to be an example of that, of like going from just me focused to, oh, it's everyone. This affects everyone. but how do we all succeed? Is there a way we can? And that is the big question she wrestles with through being a demon. Does she stay a demon or become a human? And I wanted that to be kind of the same thing. Like, does she lose her soul pursuing her big dream
Hmm.
or not? And I think I had a lot of fun with it. Like, I tried to make it as fun as possible, even though I'm wrestling with these big questions.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, you were mentioning there that you kind of, because you've been in the business, the entertainment business for so long, you'd heard all these stories. That really shines through. I imagine that you'd kind of been through these kind of things, not maybe not personally, but with people who've been through the same kind of experiences as these characters. But something else that you is kind of an underlying thing is that she's always thinking about what her parents or how her parents have kind of thought about her dreams, kind of to be this
Hmm.
magician. Um, I'm quite curious, where did that side of Mabel come from? Kind of this desire to kind of achieve what she wants to achieve, despite what her parents kind of they kind of laugh and say that she's not going to achieve that kind of dream and those kind of things.
I'd say that's definitely a parallel to my own life and
Hmm.
to the lives of many artists that I've known. I grew up wanting to be an animator, and that was my big dream. I wanted to animate movies. And my parents were watching the animation industry kind of go from 2D to 3D, because that's when Pixar was just starting to take off, because I
Right.
was a kid in the 90s. And they were showing me news articles like all these 2D animators are losing all their jobs, they're being replaced by 3D. And I was like, I really still want to go do art and do animation or graphic design or something. And I had a lot of pushback with my own family growing up. And when I met more artists, they also had similar pushback of like, don't go into the creative field, you'll never earn a living, you'll never make it, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to show how that felt. And I also was drawing on one of my inspirations for this was Z, The Beginning of Everything, the book from Zelda, like imagining Zelda Fitzgerald's perspective, F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife. And she was a writer, and it was a mini series that got canceled where Christina Ricci was playing Zelda. And I really liked the pushback she got from her Southern family and like the expectations and everything. They showed that in the show, and I'm like, I know what that's like because I'm also Southern. I'm from Atlanta originally, even though now I live up by Salem, Massachusetts. And I know what that's like to have someone push back at your dreams. It almost makes you want to work harder. And it makes Mabel, I think, even more desperate to get in and prove them wrong because she's been told her whole life she's not going to make it. She needs to fall into the expectations of what everyone else is thinking. And I just wanted to explore that because it was so familiar to me. And I found my own way out of it. And I wanted Mabel to find hers too.
Hmm. Brilliant. I mean, that was something else that reminded me a little bit of the Wizard of Oz, the way that her kind of the auntie and all these kind of people are kind of they didn't see her going, kind of being able to cope on her own, and we see her kind of convert into the witch and all these different things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's that same kind of transformation, I think, of Mabel becoming who she ends up being. I don't want to spoil the end of the novel, but she just picked an ending I was very satisfied with. Like, is she gonna go good or bad? And I've always liked the Wicked Witch's story, so you can kind of infer where I'm gonna go.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, but no, I really remember, especially the point where she talks about her mother. It really kind of reminded me of that. Yeah, that was one of the kind of the moments that really kind of reminded me of the Wizard of Oz more so than anything else. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's also, I mean, we talk about she's got this dream and she wants to be famous, but it's also very much a commentary on kind of fandom and how people become infatuated with people despite not even knowing where they come from, who they are, what their intentions might be. Where did that kind of inspiration come from? Because it's kind of exactly the opposite way of opposite perspective of kind of Mabel's look on life.
Yeah, so I think the scene you're referring to is when Mabel performs for the first time, and she
That's
has
right.
these fanatical fans just want a piece of the limelight. Like they will do anything to be up on stage with her and get a piece of her hair, a piece of her dress, like a souvenir. And I was thinking when I wrote that of, I can't remember the name of the song right now, the White Stripes song, where it's about taking, like, it's basically a song that's about, oh, I just wanted one more thing and then was fine, but now I want one more thing from this
Yeah.
famous person. I don't know who they are, but I need I need a little bit more of that limelight. I'm never quite satisfied because it's just that kind of parasocial relationship where you think because somebody wrote or made or created um, this amazing thing that you have this connection with them, but they don't know who you are. They're just writing, they're just drawing, they're just acting or singing. And even like with music, you can really connect to something and be like, oh, this really meant a lot to me. But that doesn't mean you know the artist or who they are in their personal life or anything like that. But people take it like, especially with the internet and how everything is so close these days, like you can talk to your favorite band or your favorite author or
Yeah, no, I mean,
whoever.
I just saw you trying on some hats like 2 minutes before the interview, and you're on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's so funny. Like I was trying on hats before this for my
yeah,
shop, and you can we know we're all connected now,
yeah,
and we get more glimpses into each other's lives, I think, than ever before. But I wanted to write about how fame is this really weird thing, and I like even in my time at Cartoon Network, or say my time in video games, like I had my own fandom where I really loved BioShock and I really loved, I was working with some of the team that made it,
yeah,
but I wanted them to be people. Like I just approached them as people. They're just bringing their kids to school, they wash their laundry, they do all those normal things,
yeah,
they're just, they have families and it's very humbling and I learned that very early in my career because I got exposed to so many big names so quickly. I used to
all right,
be the young adult editor for the HWA, and I did an interview series with Jonathan Mabry called Scary Out There, and we interviewed a lot of really big name authors, and I was starting to meet them at events, and suddenly I was in all these circles where I was meeting all of my writing heroes, and they were all just everyday people who
yeah,
write books, and they just happened to write my favorite books. And one of them was one of my good friends, Chris Golden. He wrote Hellboy, and I was obsessed with Hellboy ever since high school. When the movie with Ron Perlman came out, I was like, this is, oh, I want to write like a cult detective like this. And there's still like in my work some Hellboy influence.
yeah,
It's definitely there. And when I met him in person, I was like, I don't know if I can talk. I don't know. But I just felt this sense of like calm, like he's just a dude. And
yeah,
then we ended up talking, and he was like, I'm so glad we chatted because I know you're a fan because I wrote him fan mail. Like, I
all
liked him
right.
so much. I even wrote him, how do you write books? Like, how do you do that? But
Ah,
when I
they
met him in
remembered.
person,
Yeah,
I was like, chill. Like, and we became friends after that. And I've been friends with him for years now. Like he's basically like my big brother. And it's really funny because now I don't talk about the fan stuff at all. Like, oh my God, I read your book and I just loved it so much, blah, blah, blah. Because it makes him feel uncomfortable and awkward. And I
yeah,
don't want my friendship to be about that. And I've
all right,
seen him go through people clamoring on to him. And I just saw it happen to a lot of authors. I used to be at the same agency as Chuck Palahniuk. I went to one of his events and people would come up and show him their bruises from Fight Club,
mm,
their own real Fight Club. And he was like, whoa, I think you missed the point of the book. And it
yeah,
made him feel weird. And so I wanted to write about that through Mabel, of having seen some of my friends who've maybe made it a bit farther than me, like have movie deals, are working on major IP properties, and the weirdness that happens to them the second they're in the limelight, the second they're up there. And I wanted that to be part of it, is because that is part of the cost of the more you're known, the more people see you and the more they want from you. And you don't always know what that is, like what it is that they want. And that can be scary in and of itself. And I loved one movie I loved recently that touched on this was Smile 2. And I saw that and was like, this is what I was talking about in Below the Grand Hotel. It's exactly the same thing. So I absolutely love Smile 2. I was like yelling about it online because, yeah, what she goes through of like people, where
yeah,
all those people clamor for her, and like she's imagining in her head, but they're all like trying to get a piece of her, and like they're all her backup dancers. I was like, yes, that's
mhm.
exactly what I was saying.
And I mean, at the same time, not just the people, but I think that I don't know. Maybe I'm reading between the too much between the lines, but also the hotel. It just kind of it felt like it was encroaching on you. It was kind of watching you all the time as well. Was that intentional?
Oh, yes, because I mean, you've read to the end, so you know who the hotel is. You know that. I don't want to spoil that,
No, no,
but
no, yeah,
the
yeah.
hotel is an entity and it is watching Mabel and it knows. And of course, The Shining was an influence for that. I mean,
Oh.
very obvious. But it's just also that horror of place. I get a lot actually from being in the South and being in really haunted places that you feel like something's still there, like something seeped into the dirt. And it's like in Savannah, Georgia, for example. And it's there and it's a heavy presence. And I'm like, I want that horror of place in a giant hotel where every room you're always watching, you never know like what move you're going to make. And I liked writing it where the hotel shifts and has different floors or will move you around. And that was, I think, one of the funnest things to write is that it has a kind of movable map because
Hmm.
it is sentient. It will direct you where it wants you to go.
Uh-huh. But I mean, that must have been a lot of fun to write that, but at the same time, it must have been really complex to kind of navigate all that. And I mean, I imagine you had like a big cork board or something on, have the hotel all set out and kind of arrange all of its movements and all the things that it could do.
Well, I think it helped, to be honest, that I worked in level design. Like I did some level design on Romancevania, and I really studied the levels in BioShock to do the levels in Romancevania. I worked on the intro level,
Hmm.
and I wanted from that experience to take it into my writing. I saw it with new eyes, like the way that I write my books, because I figured out how through video games to like have you enter a room, move the player around the room, what's the boss fight, what are you up against to get to your goal to get to the other side. And I had another friend read Hotel and was like, this felt like a video game. And I'm like, that was entirely on purpose.
Uh-huh.
It's because now I was thinking with that structure. So it didn't feel too much like, oh, I have to have this giant corkboard with all these things.
Yeah.
It was just, no, I'm going to have it make sense within itself with these small shifts. If I were physically to build this game in Unreal Engine, how would I do it? And I even laid out a pitch for it as a game just for myself to see, like, okay, this is what it looks like. This is the level. This is the staircase. This is the back room where you go into the lower floors. This is how it would be. And that helped. Like, I think the fact I'm an artist does help because I could just draw
Yeah,
it
yeah.
and be like, here's the map. And I've done maps for 13 years at this point. Wow, that's like a really long time, but 13 years I've been doing maps for books. And the most complicated structure I ever drew was a Coliseum with different floors, and each of them, like a video game, had a different kind of like boss fight. Um, but yeah, I didn't find it too complicated to do, but I guess because I'd come from that experience of having to write this and design this before, when doing the hotel, I found it easy because it's just one structure that really it's all the same up and down. It gets bigger as it goes down, but other than that, it's pretty much floors and rooms and floors and rooms. It's just how do I have it shift in the below?
Mhm. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the interior of the hotel. I don't want to give obviously too much away. I don't want to say all the different things that are in there, the contraptions or whatever. But I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the decor. It was a lot of it was kind of Greek artifacts and those kind of things. Does that come from your kind of research from the 1920s and what was in the hotels, or that's something completely different?
Yeah, I came from my research of what was in hotels, also just the fascination with the Greek gods at the time. And it was also a way of saying, look, these are not biblically accurate demons. These demons revere the Greek gods, and it's a different shift in mentality. And I really liked playing around with, let's say, Frank West, who owns the hotel. His room has Venus in his bathroom, and Mabel has a completely different aesthetic and look and a different Greek god, but each one is kind of like what they're about in a way. Like Frank is all about that beauty and like the appearance of everything's fine and like making the hotel look as gorgeous as possible, carrying on his family legacy, and also the nefarious side of that, of what underlies beauty beneath the surface. And I really liked picking in each room what Greek god's going to be in there and subtly what it's saying about that character. So that was really fun.
Mhm. And also, same again, no spoilers, please. The kind of the look of the demons as well was very specific. When we start to realize what's going on in there and kind of things manifest.
Hmm.
Where where did you where did kind of the inspiration for these demonic manifestations come from?
Oh, I love this question. So my demons, to explain it, this won't be a spoiler, is that they all
Uh-huh.
have a second mouth and it appears somewhere on their body once their soul is taken. And that mouth has to feed, it's hungry, and it has to feed on flesh. And it came from when I wrote the short story. This is just in chapter 1 and 2. Um, Mabel, our heroine, thinks that she has seen the biggest yellow diamond, and she's got her way into Ziegfeld now. She's got that cheddar where she's going to go back and convince him to finally pick her. And she follows this gorgeous couple into the Grand Hotel, breaking her rule of never going to hotels because someone will recognize her. The staff will recognize her if she keeps picking pockets there. And she's like, I'll do it for that yellow diamond. It's huge. I'll finally reach my goal if I had that kind of money. And she doesn't know that this couple's luring her into a trap into their suite. And it came organically from the moment when the couple's name's Evelyn and Martin Green. That was on purpose. It's a reference to Ava Green because I was imagining in my mind Evelyn is Ava Green. Like that, she's sexy, she's like Penny Dreadful vibes. That's but in the 20s. And her husband, Martin, is kind of like, new money. He's a lovable goof, but the whole setup is very like you'd think, this gorgeous couple lures the young girl into their room. The woman says, I'm going to go freshen up while the man stays behind. And he starts unbuttoning his shirt. And as he unbuttons his shirt, you think as the reader that he's trying to have a petting party with Mabel. He's looking to do some stuff. And then instead, it's a giant mouth in his stomach. And I was literally thinking in that moment, how can I make this gross? When I was just doing the short story. And then from there, I'm like, all right, I got to make this make sense because the next moment you see like Evelyn has a second mouth and it's right across her collarbone, which I thought was a very sexy place to have it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, from there, everyone's got to have a different mouth in a different place. And the longer they're demons, the bigger
That's
the
what I
mouth
love.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I I love that too. Some of the cost of if the mouth doesn't feed, you do see later on a character, I won't spoil with who, but the lips are chapped on the second mouth. And it just looks pale and hungry and like starved. Like it's this other entity out of your skin that if you don't feed it, it will cost your stamina. And that was definitely a video game thinking sense of like, okay, if this was a health meter and you're playing this game, what's the cost of not feeding? Okay, you're going to get health stats knocked off for every X amount of time that you don't go eat another person. So that's why I'm saying like most of this game was a very video game structure in my brain because I wanted there to be magic with a cost. Any gift comes with a cost. I love fantasy stories like that. I love horror stories like that. And I wanted to be smart about this and consistent. So Mabel's are in her hands, but I love later in the book how they transform. That was really fun to explore. Okay, how are they going to get bigger though? What's that going to look like? That was very fun.
Uh-huh. Can you elaborate a little bit? I mean, how you decided kind of where different people would have these mouths without giving anything away? Because that was something that I can't remember it kind of being answered specifically. Was there any kind of reasoning behind why the mouths were in different places on different people?
I think with Evelyn, I think hers appeared there because she is coming from a place of being very powerful and presence in her own body. And she kind of leans like, I would say, I thought about this in a very physical way and how the body and having done dance for a very long time, how you can show a character in their movements based off of like motion. So with Evelyn, she's very confident, chest forward. Her mouth would be like the
Right.
perfect place on her collarbone. With Mabel, she's more fearful. So I was thinking, what would she have go forward first in her body? Her
Right.
hands, like, stop, don't hurt me. So it was a protective position of having her second mouth be in both of her hands. And with both with Will and with Martin, they both have mouths in their stomachs, but with Martin, it's a little bit lower where it's like it's kind of goofy. It's kind of in a silly place because he's a little goofy. And then with Will, it's like across his body where he's just had his heart torn out by all of the like things that he's been through, losing his parents, um, trying to escape the gangs in Ireland, losing his sister, which you find out more about in the book. I won't spoil.
Hmm.
But his is more of a like a wound than
Should be ripped
both
apart.
Martin and Evelyn have embraced their mouths and love it. And for Will, it's an active penance he carries for his poor decisions.
Hmm. Oh, brilliant. It's because I can't remember it, but specifically kind of explaining, or not, obviously not explaining, but kind of, I can't remember walking away from the book thinking kind of for an explanation why, but now that you explain it, it makes complete and total sense. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Brilliant. I don't want to talk too much about the characters because that's what the book's for, obviously. But I'm quite curious. Can we talk a little about Lucky? What
Sure.
you kind of wanted to manifest, if you will, with Lucky, kind of like in Mabel in the future, almost maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So with Lucky, I really wanted her to have a doppelganger counterpart, someone who had been in Mabel's position before, who failed at her job. And you find out through the book how she failed and why she didn't do what she was supposed to as a leading lady. Oh my gosh. And she ends up having to do kind of the dirty work of the hotel. And pretty much anyone in the hotel, if they don't do what is in their contract to do, like the typical contract with the Grand Hotel is you can get to do X artistic skill and have as many patrons as you want, or as many like audience members or people purchasing your art or coming to hear you sing or whatever your gift is you want to share, but you need to feed on them and take their souls, and their bodies will be paid to the hotel. And you learn how and where and why at the end, what happens to those bodies. Um, but with Lucky, I wanted to show what happens if you don't fulfill your contract. And now you're stuck working a dirty job. And she has to do that. And she can't get her soul back. She's kind of stuck there. And it's been too long for her, I think, to really see a way out, to get out. And yeah, I wanted to show that because later I knew I was going to build up to another character who was going to get even further demoted.
Mhm.
And anyone who gets demoted works in service to the hotel. They don't get to be a headliner. They don't get to have a cushy job. They have to clean the blood. They have to clean the sheets. They have to cook the food. Like the dishwasher scene, you know the one I'm talking about, where you see the
Yeah, yeah.
dishwashers, or they are really punished.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I mean the reason I ask about Lucky is it's a really I love that relationship that she shares with Mabel because at the beginning you just it's this kind of this sense that despite her having kind of been through what Mabel's going through now, they just really don't get on at all in the beginning, and then they realize just how similar they really are.
hmm Yeah, I love that because I think in this, any field, any creative field, you're going to run into other people who can draw too. They can write too. Sometimes better than you. Sometimes it's not even about better, it's just they're a better fit for the project. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that parallel in the entertainment industry, whatever field you're in or whatever kind of job you're doing, is that you'll meet a lot of other people that do exactly what you do. And it can feel that sense of like competition, like it's got to be you or me.
Yeah.
But really, it's not, I don't think it's always worth it because that other person could really turn out to be a good friend because they actually understand what you're going through and what it took to get there. And can even like share tips and tricks with each other. And so I have made, like, just in my own life, very good friends with people who can also do UI UX design in games or can also animate in After Effects. And then I can ask questions and stuff, and we can talk to each other about work. And yes, sometimes it comes down to, is it me or her for the job? But it's a lot lonelier if you see everybody as competition, everybody with your same skill set, everybody who can do what you can do. And then you do miss out, I think, on opportunities for both of you in the long run, because at some point you may end up working on the same team. You
Yeah.
never know. Because especially say in game development, teams form and reform all the time. And it's small communities. Same with book publishing. Same
Yeah.
with broadcasting and film, you know? Who knows when you'll work with somebody again? And so if you have that animosity around you all the time, like I'm going to fight everyone around me, it's like no one wants to work with you then.
Mhm. Yeah. Is that something that you experience in the literary circles? Because it feels to me, I mean, maybe I'm just not speaking to those people, maybe people who are more competitive, but it just feels like a very, very kind of cozy, uh, very level playing field. I mean, for example, you've got a quote on I don't know if it was on the book, but in the advertising from Clay McLeod Chapman, for example, he's on pretty much everyone's book at the moment. He reads
Yes.
everything. It just sounds like
Bless
it's
him. He's reading
very,
everybody.
very different, a very, very kind of different kind of community, the literary world now. Maybe I don't. I mean, obviously, I don't kind of live in that kind of community, but I get the idea that it's very different to this community that Abel goes into in the hotel. No.
Yeah, I think with the horror community, I have met the nicest people who all just want to help each other out, to be
Mhm.
honest. There still have been some people who just are really in it for themselves and have huge egos, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
But before I wrote Below the Grand Hotel, I did write a YA book, and I was in the YA community for a long time. And that felt like high school sometimes,
Yeah.
of like who's popular, who's not, who sits with who, and it felt very cliquey at
Mhm.
times, and I've heard a lot of other YA writers feel the same way. Like most of the YA horror people I've met are hella cool. Like they're the same kind of chill, don't have huge egos.
Yeah.
And then, you find out a lot of the time that the people are acting that way because they're just trying to like protect themselves because they've gotten so big and famous in some cases that they're like, I gotta keep people at a distance.
Mhm.
So I always try to like look at that as like maybe there's a reason someone's being that way. Like maybe they are like, all right, everyone knows who I am. I'm the next big YA book, and I'm gonna keep to just my core friends and family because that's all I can handle. So that's another reason why some people might come off as prickly. And
Yeah.
from having worked with a lot of YA writers on different maps, I've heard that a lot. Like as they've gotten bigger, they're like, I can't handle this anymore. It's that same case of like Mabel being pulled on by the crowd. I saw that in YA too. And I'm like, I get it now. I get why they're kind of like, I'm gonna just sit with my friends. But it can make other new people feel like they're left out, but they're just not there yet. And it's good when they like new people find other new people to sit and connect with. But in horror, I think maybe because it's smaller, maybe because we're all into something that's a little gross. We all like this. We're all like here going, yeah, we know what we write. It's fine. We all it doesn't matter as much, I've noticed, of like whether you're a really big writer
Yeah.
or really small. And of all the conventions I've been to, everyone sits with everybody. It's not really, oh, only the A list, the 10% sit over here. I've
Right.
never really experienced that with horror. So yeah, I think like it is the thing that happens, but I always try to see what's really going on with people. Like maybe there's a reason they are that way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. No. Brilliant. I can't not talk about. I mean, I don't. The kind of the artwork. Obviously, you've been involved in the artist industry for a long, long time. But I
Hmm.
mean, I can't wait. I mean, I've only read it on my digital reader, but I can't wait to get hold of a physical copy because it just looks so fantastic. Not just the copy, the cover, but also inside. Something that I mentioned on Instagram the other day that I love the fact that you added some of the characters kind of just past the halfway mark, actual illustrations of them, because
Yeah, I have it with me right here, the final
because
book. And it's
it's a very brave move because a lot of people like to kind of create the characters from the book, from the words. But I love the
yeah.
fact that I kind of came up with it with what I thought they would look like, but then you dared to show what you kind of imagine them as, and I loved it. I didn't expect it. I love creating these things in my head, but I love the fact that I could compare what I'd come up with to what you originally kind of came up with.
I love that so much because I was really inspired by Brahm when I did this. I
Right.
love his books. Slewfoot is one of my favorite books, and I love that he draws everything in the middle. And I had my own idea in my head of what everyone looks like, but I love that he does these beautiful illustrations in the center. And I was thinking, I don't know many other horror author, horror illustrator types that like get to put art in their own books. And I saw what he was doing, like, oh, I want to do that too. That'd be so cool. And it isn't meant in any way to detract from what people are thinking when they
Oh, sure.
visualize it and what they're seeing, but more is like, I wanted to, in any way possible, bring this book a little more to life. And like having almost an old photograph looking image of these characters makes you feel like they were real and they really lived in this time and place. And you're seeing an old photograph of them and what they look like. And, it doesn't take away from if you want to imagine a certain actress. Like I had someone who reviewed my book say, oh, like Mabel reminded me of Selena Gomez. And I'm like, my head wasn't even there, but that actually
Yeah.
works great. But I love hearing that, like what people think when they read it, because it's meant to be an inspiration versus any kind of like, oh, I got to control what the image is. I got to like make sure people know what these people look like or
Yeah.
anything. I'm like, no, I want it to feel real. Want it to
Yeah,
be
no, no,
like
exactly.
a
I mean,
real world.
I didn't feel like you were forcing it down my throat or anything at all. Exactly the opposite. I really enjoyed the fact that I could compare what I'd come up with to what you'd kind of created yourself. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it was great. Um, talking of the images, I know that was it yesterday or the day before there was kind of the Barnes and Noble sale going on, and you were kind of saying, no, no, that's great and everything, but you can get my book from I've forgotten the name, Copper Dog Books.
Hmm.
Um, and it comes with a whole range of goodies with it as well. Now it comes with some artwork. I think there's some cocktail recipes on the back of those. Can you tell us a little bit
Hmm.
about that and kind of where the idea for all of these different goodies came from?
Absolutely. So I was friends with a local bartender here in Salem at Deacon Giles Distillery, which also has a like kind of devil theme in the bar. It's almost like it's got this vibe of, oh, we made a deal with the devil to serve really good liquor. And
Uh-huh.
it's a speakeasy place. And I was talking with him about my book, and I was saying, I love your cocktails. And they had a spin on the Clover Club, which was around in the 20s, and they turned it into the Cloven Club and made it red and look like a demon's hoof print in the top in matcha
Uh-huh.
and like a little green hoof print. And I'm like, that would be amazing to have for my book. And he's like, do you want to do it together? And I said, yeah, yeah, absolutely. These are my six demons. I sent him just an overall, this is who they are. This is all the way down to their star sign, like
Right.
everyone's like zodiac sign. Cause he said, tell me as much as possible, even their zodiac. I'm like, all right, I'll come up with one for everybody. We'll just do this. Um, and then we're going to do the art that's on the inside of the book on one side, and then the cocktail recipe on the back. And then with that is the enamel pen, which is the exact same design. I did chapter headings in the final of the hotel key,
Oh, it's
and
okay.
it's
No,
the
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
same hotel key, but it's got like a heart at the end of it, like an old style um, hotel, and it says the Grand Hotel, and it has a little card that's like check in with your key. And I
Oh,
I love doing stuff like that where it makes it more immersive. It makes it like
oh,
this is
yeah,
a real
definitely. Yeah.
place you could visit. Um, and that's only with Copper Dog Books. I wanted it to be exclusive to them so that as much money goes into the indies as possible. Um, because like right now, this weekend at the time of this recording, there's the Amazon sale in the US and there's the
Right.
Barnes& and Noble 25% off pre-order. And I was like, huh, that timing from some big corporate is they know it's indie book
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they know. And they did this on purpose. And Barnes& and Noble, I'm less like upset about. I used to be a bookseller at Barnes& and Noble, and I understand
Right.
like they did time it where it was Wednesday to Friday. but it was all on pre-order. So I was like, hey, go order my book. I know you could get 25% off, but you're not going to get the goodies if you go there. Please, please go support Copper Dog Books. Then you get the nice add-ons and everything, and the money goes back to the communities. And so many places almost closed because of COVID, and now they're not in the clear. They still need us to go in and support them and buy our books there. And pre-orders help the publisher and the bookstores know what should we stock. So it is good when Barnes and Noble gets pre-orders because then they do stock the
You know
books
how
that they're
many?
getting a
Yeah.
lot of pre-orders for, but at the same time, I want the money to go back to our communities. So that's why I was like, listen, Instagram, this is what I'm gonna recommend you do this,
I listen to
please.
you. I mean, but coupled to that, I mean, I imagine I know you got a little bit of a book tour coming up soon. I imagine you're going to do something similar. Maybe I'm imagining something very themed, around the book to bring the money back into the indie bookstores as well. No?
I'm so excited about this. Yes. So I'm doing two events for the launch. The first is on launch day, I'm going to be at Copper Dog and I'm going to be drawing in people's books when they come by and giving
Yeah.
them their pre-order swag. So I love when people ask me to sign because I will draw a demon in there for you. I'm really fast. I have worked in animation. I can draw very quick. So I will draw a little like 1920s demon. And I'm going to get all dressed up as a flapper, which will be really fun. And I'm doing a second event in Salem at a little store called Nocturne that's inspired by the night, and it's got a really nice like Victorian speakeasy vibe. And they are hosting me to do a 1920s cocktail party with a 1920s drag performance and a Q&A with a fellow author from Clash Books, Victoria Dalby, and
Uh-huh.
local author Lauren Carter Riley. And I think it's going to be so much fun because we're all going to be able to get dressed up and go like 20s glam. It'll be great. I really want to do it on a Saturday, like some kind of big 20s party, and then do the signing on the 6th on my actual launch day.
Right.
I think that's going to work out really well, the two events.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I wish I was over there.
I
Brilliant.
wish I could make it over to the UK. I'm like, I would throw a speakeasy party if I ever got asked to tour in the UK. I'm like, I'm gonna plan some party. That's the kind of thing I would do is like, there's a theme party, it's gonna happen.
Oh, and then yeah, in the UK they love dress up as well, especially kind of 1920s era. There's yeah,
Mhm.
big time. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I would so do that.
Brilliant. So, I mean, just before I let you go, obviously you're promoting this right now, um, but I imagine, like most authors, you've got quite a few things on the back burner as we speak. No, is there anything that you can tell me that you may have kind of coming out soon, or that you'd like to get off the ground next that you can tell us
Yes.
about?
So I have another book that's about to go out on submission that we're pitching kind of as It Follows meets Jaws, set in the 90s.
It follows me as Jaws in the 90s. Okay.
Yeah, and it's shark in a swimming pool. Like
Swimming pool.
that's all I'll say about that. It's called Mercy Park, and it's about a god of fear. And that I'm very excited about that one. And then I have another I'm working on right now that's Salem Witches.
Right. Uh-huh.
I'm so excited for that one too. That's going to be really fun. I just did a sample chapter for that for my agent, and she loved it. So I got the go ahead to write it because Mercy Park's done. It's like about to go on sub.
All right.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So
That
very
sounds
very
that
excited.
sounds a lot very very different to the this one that you're just bringing out now. Sounds very very different.
Yeah, all of my pitches are like it's this meets this, and the Salem Witches one is Practical Magic meets Beetlejuice.
Right.
So it's gonna be witches but gross because it's
Uh-huh.
me.
I mean,
So
because
that one's
you
gonna be
actually live
fun.
there. That must I mean, it must have been. I mean, obviously you're still pitching that now at the moment, but that must be so satisfying and so much fun to be able to just kind of walk out of your front door to research and then kind of write what you're seeing right in front of you. You know.
Exactly, yeah. And like right now, I'm interviewing a couple people that I know who own businesses in Salem and own some of the old houses in Salem and know how those are the upkeep and all the rules and regulations that they have to follow and like what is it like working in Salem at Halloween, all of these things because I'm setting it in modern day for that one.
Right.
So Mercy Park, I can't believe 90s is retro, but it's retro. And and then the new Salem Witches book is going to be set right now, the way things are now, because I want to give kind of like a slice of what is it like to live here. Because now I live here and I know what it's like to have Halloween come in and like take over the town. And what is it like being a business in the midst of all that? So that's going to be a fun book.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait for people to see to read the book. I can't wait to get the actual physical copy in my hands. I can't wait to kind of the cover and everything looks great.
Thank
And
you so much.
I wish you the best of luck with this mini tour that you're doing in Copper Dog Books. And
Thank you so much.
I hope to bump into either a book festival or something, or speak to you about the next book whenever it comes out.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. And this has been wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been a pleasure to meet you, pleasure to speak to you, and thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. All right, thanks, Kat. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Cheers.